Species.
Hello and welcome to Origin of Species. Welcome to 2021. Insert comment here about how crappy 2020 was. Was it really that crappy though? Thinking about it now, we still had air conditioning, and I kind of think that any year prior to the invention of air conditioning was worse than any year after air conditioning was invented. So, not to make light of the dumpster fire of 2020, but come on, it could have been worse. Steve and I are very happy to be going strong. Everything's going great with the podcast. And hey, you guys may not know this, but there are a bunch of other podcasts on the Species Network. So Robert Bankett, our good friend, True Facts with Robert Bankett is the name of the podcast. And that is available exclusively on our Patreon. So if you go to patreon.com/speaksies, you can get that, as well as Animals That Suck. We also have Panic at the Costco that I do with my friend Aaron, and talk about 2020 being a dumpster fire. We really captured that, I think, in the Panic at the Costco podcast, and we're about to release our year in review coming up very soon. So check that out. And then one that is near and dear to my heart, Personal Records. So Personal Records is a podcast where I talk to people about the albums they love. And on this episode, you're going to get to hear Steve and me talk about this isn't his favorite album, but the album that he chose, which is a Guns N' Roses album. And I'll leave it at that. Steve isn't here today. There's a pop-up bandana shop in downtown Richmond, and he has been hanging out waiting for that to materialize. So we wish him well, hope that he is safe out there and does end up getting the bandana stash that he is hoping for. And with that said, I do want to also mention that going forward, if you want to hear a Personal Records episode, you can go to patreon.com/speaksies. I am taking down the main feed, so you won't be able to find it in Apple or Stitcher or anything like that. So definitely check out our Patreon if you're looking for Personal Records. We will be back next week with a new episode about dark nursery rhymes. So you'll want to make sure you come back for that one. But with no further ado, here is my Personal Records conversation with Steve Glissman.
Species.
On this episode of Personal Records, I have a very special guest. It's my good friend, Steve Glissman. Steve, I've known for a long time. We also do a podcast together called Origin of Species, which is set to come back for season 4 on September 8th. But Steve and I have known each other since, I guess I was in elementary school, and he would have been in middle school because I moved to Virginia Beach when I was in 5th grade. My family did. And his younger brother, Chris, and I were good friends. And so I knew Steve almost as like the older brother I never had sort of thing. And he had interesting taste in music, and we talk about that. I've always wondered where he got his taste in music. What made him he kind of zag when the others zigged? Is that how you say it? Zig when the others zagged. But and we got into that. So it's fun because if you listen to Origin of Species, our podcast together, we don't talk about this stuff. And really, we don't talk about it in just everyday life. Steve and I talk all the time, but we don't reminisce like this and talk about old stories and things. So if you know Steve, you'll really enjoy this. Or if you listen to the podcast, our other podcast, you might like this as well. Or if you just like listening to two dudes talk about music and old friends, hopefully you'll enjoy it as well. So the album he chose was Chinese Democracy by Guns N' Roses. And, he'll be the first to admit it's not one of his favorite albums, as you'll hear. But this is Personal Records, and there's a reason for him choosing this one. And you'll hear him talk about that. So before I get started, a couple of notes there. It was so hot. So you'll hear us refer to the temperature in our studio here. because my air conditioning was broken at the time we did this, and it was probably it was 100 outside, and it was 80s plus in my house. And I think we just start this episode off with Steve and I talking about a story where he threw a party, a July 4th party, when his brother Chris and I were still in high school and he was in college. So that's how this is going to start. Really hope you enjoy this. Appreciate you listening. My name is Scott McGinnis, and this is Personal Records. Gosh, what year was it? It was July 4th, probably like 96 or 97.
Mm-hmm.
Or
no, it wasn't. It was earlier.
It was earlier because we were in college. That's what it was. It was it was like 95 maybe?
Probably 95.
All right, so this... I'm probably going to get this all wrong. All I know is that Steve was back from college. Did you throw a party?
That was the only party I ever threw at my life at home. And it was a good one. I will say.
So I'm going to say my full memory of this. You have final edit on any of this.
Go for it.
Okay. I want to say my full memory.
Go for it. No, go
okay,
for it.
Okay. Here's my memory of this. Steve is in. There's going to be a party at Steve's house. Mm-hmm. Your parents must have cleared out because they weren't around. They probably went to go visit some friends. Let Steve run a party. And Steve, my memory of Steve...
No, that was totally behind their back. They didn't know they were going to do it.
Okay. Yeah. Makes way more sense now.
Yeah.
I remember Chris was nervous about it. Mm-hmm. Big shocker. Yeah. He knew it was coming, but I was like pretty excited. What was great about that July 4th, 1995 was it was such a mix of... So it was like Steve and your friend, I don't know if Boozy was there, but I know Ed Scopel was there.
Ed was there.
Grilling in the back.
Yeah, which was good because I couldn't grill. So it was good that he knew how to actually do that.
I remember you climbing a ladder that was leaned up against the back of the townhouse.
Yeah.
Climbing up, screaming at the Filipino neighbors.
Close.
Chris was very concerned at this point about what's happening. Not just with you, but just with the house. Because I think he was looking at you as the authority figure at this point of like...
mistake.
Right. This house is going to get burned down. There was drinking going on at this point. So we break off. My friend Micah, Chris, and I, and then some other friends from college, and we met up at Mount Trashmore. We watched some fireworks. If you're not from Virginia Beach, Mount Trashmore is actually a very beautiful park that was built on a landfill. The name is misleading. We come back to, at some point, and actually we also went to Regent University, it used to be called CBN University, to meet up with some girls there, watch some fireworks. So when we're not drinking, Chris and I, we get back to your house and go in, and we're loud as hell. We're farting around, me, Micah, and Chris. And then next thing you know, I walk into the room and I hear this Jar of Flies is playing super loud. All the lights are off. And I'm like, God, somebody left the music on. I walk in. Steve is passed out on the couch with Jar of Flies blasting on repeat. And I was like, I think something's wrong with your brother. I think it was really the first time I ever saw somebody like blackout. I assume you were blackout drunk. I'm not sure what was going on.
Post-game recuperation.
But that's my Jar of Flies memory. So what did I get wrong about that?
So the key thing you got wrong was I was not... They had Filipino people at the party. That was just yelling at everybody. I wasn't singling them out. I did climb up the ladder.
Why? To yell at the neighbors? To see over their fence?
Because I took a whiz on the side of the house.
That's what it was.
And my neighbors actually gave me a very polite... They were impressed with me and actually brought more beer over.
Okay. So, but it still doesn't make sense because you climbed a ladder...
To take a whiz.
To take a whiz, okay.
Because it was all... You should try it sometime. You've talked about the power of urinating in your backyard.
Everyone should pee in their own backyard.
Urinate on your parents' house in front of a crowd of people and neighbors.
It has gone from 78.8 to now 80.2 in the last 5 minutes.
That's not that bad. I'm used to it. I think that's a good thing about being 100 degrees outside is if we're stuck at, mid-80s, getting close to night, it's still not 100.
Yeah, it still feels pretty good when you come in for a minute. So I have Steve Glissman with me. You know him best as... Well, it depends on how you know him. You might know him from our podcast together, Origin of Species, or you may just know him because he's your friend or something.
I'm out and around. I try to get out of there. Actually, that's probably the most false thing I'll say the whole
I was
day.
about to say.
I don't go anywhere. I walk around by my house in my neighborhood.
Yeah.
If you live near me, you might know me. If you go to Deep Run Park, you might see a guy in tiny shorts and a bandana.
Do you wear the bandana when you walk?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
But it's gone from looking like an undercover cop to what I'm trying now is it helps them keep the neck covered in the sun. That's been helpful because it's 100 degrees
You
out.
know what? So I was leaving the pool the other day, and I put a towel over my head, and I was like, man, I look like a disciple. And then all of a sudden it hit me. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's why they wear stuff like that, to cover their neck and head. It's just this natural thing to protect yourself from the sun. So we're going to get into I do actually have some questions about what you wear and stuff, because Steve's here today with very short shorts, a very nice purple polo type shirt. It's an actual polo shirt, I think.
Yeah. Or what's the off-brand? There's Polo. There's like Ralph Lauren, and there's like U.S. Polo.
There's one that's called like Polo Club or something. It's like it feels like it shouldn't be legal.
Yeah, that's probably what I'm wearing.
Well, I think they're probably just as nice as actual polos with
they're
half
not
the cost.
They're not, but that's what I like to go for. And I think this is very fitting about bandanas. I've done the axle rows on my forehead, cutting the grass. Very helpful.
Is it?
It keeps the sweat out. If you don't want to wear a hat, you want to keep the sweat out your face.
Yeah. See, my problem is my head is too big. See, it's like I have the same problem with clothes. They don't quite always fit right. Bandanas just, my head's too big. I can't. I'd have to get like an extra large bandana if they even make it, but it's supposed to be one size.
When was the last time you tried?
It's been a while. It's been a while. That's in fairness, but that's your look now. I'm just curious, when you're walking around like that, like you've never been like hit, like somebody asked you if you party or something. You know what I mean?
No. Well, I'm waiting for that. We need to talk to our friend who is a vice cop.
Yep. I almost said that park name, and for some reason I felt like I shouldn't say it.
Why not? It's Red Wing Park.
Red Wing Park. You look like you're hanging out in Red Wing Park.
And I think we've talked before also about what it's got to be like for him when he has a bad day at work. Like, we have a bad day at work, some meetings don't go well.
Yeah, you sent out an email to the wrong person or something.
You misspell something. His bad day at work, I think that's going to kill his self-esteem.
Well,
I'm thinking like when he doesn't, his job is to make sure that people at the park are only doing what they're supposed to do in a public place and not maybe soliciting other activities.
Looking for guys with short shorts and bandanas.
Yeah, pretty much. Who just happen to be cutting through the forest, which is what I do sometimes also.
Oh, so you're actually cutting through. I'm surprised you haven't gotten busted yet, but that park isn't known for. That's a nice park. The park we go to,
right?
Or the
I'm doing if I'm trying to like do things slyly, I'm not doing a good job of it, because part of my walk is to like walk through like a giant field. Yeah. Which I've also found people are sunbathing in, which is weird.
Yeah, that is weird.
There's one woman who typically will sunbathe by herself, but she does it like in a corner of the park. So I come out of like the forest from my neighborhood, and I have to make sure, now I see her, I'm like, I don't want to like freak this lady out or look like some like peeper.
Right.
So like then I have to like dramatically walk in front of her and like cut across the field. So I want her to see that she like I stomp and like I kick gravel as I walk. And then I cut in front of her. I'm like, I'm not creeping around.
About what time does she do that? Just so I know not to go
lunch-ish
at that time.
So it's at a very like open time where everybody's there.
She's doing a podcast right now about like, I don't know, what's the bad Metallica album, Saint Anger or something? One? I don't know. They're getting ready to talk about that. She's like, this guy in shorts and knockoff polo shirts comes around every day. So. No, but listen, it's hot as balls in here. We're at my house. We don't have, my air conditioning is out. It's 100 degrees outside. It's now 80.5 in here. Well, let me ask you, Steve. Yes. Let's just get right into this. And then what we're going to do, let's let everyone know what we're going to talk about, and then I want to ask you some questions about music, and then we'll get into the album. Can
I share how I arrived at this destination?
Yeah, please.
Also,
let's do that.
Scott and I, for months, have talked about what would my personal record discussion be. So I feel like I have to show off a little bit before I get to the one I was going to do. So I went through albums that I liked, some ones that were considered. I thought about The Fiddler on the Roof motion picture soundtrack, because that was something that was actually played in my home a lot as I was a kid. That would be a personal record. I thought about like my first like real David Bowie record, which
Yeah.
was the album Heroes. That was like the first time I kind of got away from greatest hits things
Right.
and did that. I thought about one of my all-time favorite, like when I was in college records, it was kind of my own Altered Beast by Matthew Sweet, which is a great record, and also turned me on to the band Television, because Richard Lloyd was played with Matthew Sweet's band, and
I
he
didn't
was
know
in
that.
Television, so it's always fun to
Yep.
do that. So I just want to say those things to show that I'm not a total Philistine.
Every album that you've mentioned is a masterpiece by anybody's definition, I think. And so I was like, all right, you're gonna do. I thought you were gonna end up doing. Actually, at one point you were even talking about doing not Houses of the Holy, physical graffiti.
Yeah, because we wanted to do Led Zeppelin. When I was in high school, I had a big Led Zeppelin phase, and that would have been good too.
But instead, what did you go with?
We decided to go with...
We.
Pardon me. Yeah, that's right. I'll take this. So the ironic thing is I'm taking an album that is very personal, but if you had me rank top 10 albums, top 50 albums, top 100, this album probably wouldn't even make it.
Where does this rank? Let's just go with this. Where does this rank in the GNR? Or do you even think of it as a GNR album?
It's not really a Guns N' Roses album.
Yeah.
It's an Axl Rose solo album after he made everyone sign over the rights to use the name Guns N' Roses.
Yeah. So it really doesn't. I was talking earlier today with our friend Aaron Sara, I do podcast stuff with, and I was like, "What do you hear? What album Steve chose?" And she's like, "I want to guess," And I was like, "You'll never in a million years guess it." Right. I said, "It's one of the biggest bands." I'll give you a hint. One of the biggest bands, late '80s, early '90s, and she immediately said Guns N' Roses. I'm like, all right, which album you think? And she didn't even. She goes, so she guessed them all, and she goes, "Didn't he do one about like Russia?"
Yeah.
I was like, "Yeah, it's that one, but it's not about Russia."
Yeah.
So before this is going to be a teaser. Before you tell us why you chose that one, I want to go back a little bit. And you mentioned Fiddler on the Roof. So Steve and I have known each other for a long time, for 25 years?
Yeah, let's say 20 plus.
20 plus.
So people can't figure out how old we are.
Yeah.
Which is not young.
We're not young. And but I realize we talk a lot about, we talk a lot, but we don't sit here and talk about music and going back to music. So I really don't know like what your connection is to, for instance, Fiddler on the Roof. So you said that was some music you used to listen to as a kid. I'll ask you specifically why that one, and then what were some other things you remember from your early years?
So some of my earliest memories of music are sitting in front of a actual record player, and my dad was a big ELO fan.
Really?
Electric Light Orchestra.
I know that.
So if anyone ever has ever seen an actual ELO album from back in the day, their logo was a giant spaceship, and very intricate albums that you would open up, and they were just fun just to look at.
Right.
I don't even know if I even listened to the music as much as I remember being a kid, like staring at, looking at the albums and going through it and finding a little detail, finding little people standing on the spaceship and things like that. One of those kind of back in the day things that was lost. Not to dwell on this, but it's important, and you know this is, as I said, is probably very unfortunately formative on like my music views. My parents went through a phase where they decided that any music that they had that wasn't religious music wouldn't be in our house.
Right.
So there was a cleansing of the house. There was a bit of a banishment of anything that wasn't religious music, and with that came the forbidden fruit of everything that I wasn't allowed to listen to suddenly became something I was obsessed with.
So is the ELO after that phase?
That was
so. Did ELO have to go somewhere?
ELO,
and then that got replaced.
ELO had to
was
go.
exempted. They were grandfathered.
No, they were not grandfathered in. So I knew from my dad that one of the reasons he liked ELO is very, as most bands are, influenced by the Beatles, but there's more of a heavy. You see it a little bit more in terms of melody and things like that.
Right.
With what they did. So that always stuck with me. So that was some of my earlier music memories. So things that did still exist. Fiddler on the Roof was something that made it through. So that was something like a movie we watched often. And the soundtrack's great. And I still listen to it frequently. And it's fun introducing it to the kid. And watching the movie with her and seeing her, her kind of react to it too.
When I Was a Rich Man. That's right. That's probably the only song that I know.
Yeah.
Or If I Was a Rich Man. I messed it up. Yeah.
It's okay.
Which was later appropriated by Gwen Stefani with her.
Which is the real reason why I like that song or like that.
Nothing. So did you when I'm actually curious about this, we've never spoken about it. So since your brother and I, so Steve and I, for most of our childhood, I knew him as my best friend's older brother, which, he had you probably know this. You actually had a big impact on my musical taste, not because you said, listen to this, but you were somewhere else and I was with Chrissy going through your music,
right?
So, and you may or may not know the fact that I borrowed your Guns N' Roses Use Your Illusion 2 tape. Sure. Are you aware of that? I took that from, you had a box of...
there was the tape drawer, wasn't there?
It was a box. You had a brown box of tapes you had like a desk, under the desk.
Right.
Wasn't a drawer. Well, maybe it was a drawer.
I think it was a black case that was in a drawer.
That makes sense.
There were 2 levels
Either way, there was an illicit feeling to it because my family had also done the purge of... Right. And by the way, one day I found my dad's stash of records in Kentucky, and one of them had a big old skull on the front, and it freaked the crap out of me. It was a CCR album. I later found it, and I was like, CCR is like not... I thought it was like some sort of... Like, Dad used to be into like satanic stuff. But back to this, it was a kind of an illicit thing of like, it's Steve's stash of music. And I borrowed your tape. Thankfully, it was never found by my parents because the liner notes, the inside of the artwork on the inside of that Use Your Illusion 2... Was it 1 or 2? Whatever the red one was. I think
that's 1.
Yeah, 1.
Blue is 2.
I'm messing it up. It was 1. So, but anyway, so you guys went through the purge of that type of music as well. But then stuff started to make it back in. Was there anything from that time period that was like allowed music or like, music that was okay to be in the house that you found yourself really bonding with that you maybe even listen to today? Or... was that just a dark period for you?
No, well, later as I went and reassembled my own music collection, I did remember... You remember when the Beatles, there was the red and the blue greatest hits came out. And I remembered having those albums at my house. Yeah. So it was cool down the road to kind of, build back some stuff. And my parents have kind of lightened up a little bit. So, Beatles are back in the house at their home. And, things are different now. So,
but were you getting no other music between, the time? Because that was like high school or something, right? Or no?
No, that was when I was younger. So
that's where our age difference. To me, I'm thinking, well, what happened when you were in middle school? But that was middle school for you.
Yeah. So what I did is any place I could get any music, I got it. If I could listen to something because it was forbidden, that kind of made me. Seek it out and find some sort of, like you said, illicit, which I think it was. When anything's forbidden, it was funny, my kid said that the other day. Something came up and she actually said, oh, whenever we find out something's banned, me and all my friends go to try to find it. And which was her, to say unprompted, was my very open daughter to say that was... Right,
yeah, it's like, thanks for the heads up, but it's true. We all kind of do it. It's so, but I'm really, just again, not to... keep going down this path, but I'm just curious, like, how you went from the Fiddler on the Roof, and of course there was the Beatles, but I just remember, and maybe this was when you were in college, and me and Chris and I were in high school. Yeah, I have this specific memory of you coming into the house with a bag of 2, I think it was CDs at that point, and you're like, I got the double whammy. It was Matthew Sweet, and it was the Posies, and I just remember thinking, this is the gayest shit. Like, what are you doing? And you also had, I think, Diamond Dogs by Bowie. Oh, yeah. And you would like rub it in I took it as you were rubbing this in our face of like, okay, you guys are really into like Vanilla Ice or whatever else we were listening to. Like, I dare you to listen to like, you didn't give a shit what we listened to, but you were like, I'm going to listen to, something that has the cover of Diamond Dogs. And we're just like, I'm like, what is wrong with your brother? Why is he? So where did that come from? Did you just want the illicit thing, or did you have somebody?
I remember, like, when I started to kind of form my own, like, kind of what I liked about music.
Yeah.
And I have a very distinct memory of Aladdin's Castle at Lynnhaven Mall.
Okay.
Do you remember there?
Of course.
So mid-'80s, they had a video jukebox is what they called it.
Mm.
And there were 2 music videos that stood out to me. One was You Give Love a Bad Name by Bon Jovi, which is made for like a 12-year-old boy. It's just, if you watch it now, the guys look cool on stage. There's busty hot ladies like cheering for them. I'm like, that's
rock
something.
and roll.
And
That's something, yeah.
And as another test, something that I could see if my life was a little bit different would have provoked me. And I highly encourage you to look up this music video. It was Brand New Lover by Dead or Alive, which is still if you see it, you could see if there was a different path that I was destined to take. It would have been very obvious at that time. If you get a chance
Good to know.
see
I'll
that.
check it out.
So those were kind of like 2 distinct things. So I kind of, I remember at that point, right afterwards, we got cable.
Mm-hmm.
So then my brother and I would kind of sneak MTV when it was, we could get away with it. And that was like the hair metal heyday. Yeah. So there was, Bon Jovi, Poison, Whitesnake. And just slowly by slowly, I kind of fleshed it out a little bit more.
Did you find things on things like, were you watching like Headbangers Ball and that stuff, or?
Oh yeah, I tried to watch anything, anytime I could get anything.
But you didn't have it blacked out on your cable box like we did, if I remember correctly. You just weren't supposed. I actually remember your dad's. I just specifically remember hearing your dad saying, "Chris, get MTV off," like because that was like the okay, go change the channel. But it always felt like your tastes were. This is going to sound like I'm really kissing your ass, but like ahead of their time. Like I'm finding I started listening in like my late 20s, 30s, 40s to stuff that you were liking in like high school. And I'm like, why did you like David Bowie? Why did you all of a sudden like Matthew Sweet or the Posies or these bands? And I'm like, where's this coming from? You don't have some older brother giving you advice. Can you explain that?
Well, yes. So it was a weird combination of, I'd find something I'd like it, then I'd backward engineer everyone who was involved with it, and that would get me into other music.
Right.
So I liked the Black Crowes a lot, and then I found out that Rod Stewart was a huge influence on them. Then I'd go find Rod Stewart stuff. I'd do whatever Spin Magazine would tell me, and this is my chance to sound. This sounds like I'm smart, but it's very petty. I have a bad habit of I don't like it when someone tells me not to do something or expects me not to like something, I'm going to rebel against that, but in a way that's a little bit more subtle than I'm not going to go buy, whatever the early 90s equivalent of Marilyn Manson was.
Right.
I'll get Matthew Sweet because that will bother people.
Yes.
That will bother the people I hang out with that are, going to listen to Onyx till the day they die.
Well, I mean, I've always, like, you've introduced me to a lot of bands over the years that I've really liked. For example, I remember riding in, like, I can remember, you and I have hung out a lot. So our story as a couple is you were the older brother of my best friend.
Right.
In college, we prayed for you. We both went to Liberty. We didn't know what you were at. You had gone to Virginia Tech. You were, doing whatever you were doing. I kind of lost track of you.
Yeah.
I don't know that I even knew you lived in Richmond. We eventually figured out we both lived in Richmond.
Right.
I believe we hung out, and then over the years we started hanging out. We worked together. I remember riding in the car with you or your old truck, and you playing the Bullet Boys. And I was like, this is awesome. I'd never heard of them before. But I'm like, how do you know about the Bullet Boy? Like, what is this? You like somehow had a hair metal phase. You had your Beatles phase, like in high school. So I felt like you were sort of, I was still listening to that same Green Day tape or listening to some like Limp Bizkit or something, but you kind of didn't go through that phase. You always had a little bit more of a mature. So if it took you being sort of contrarian, if that's where you're,
and that is me to a T.
It works with musical taste, kind of. I would say.
And I think it was the benefit too of having that little bit of time that there were cassette tapes before you fully went over into CDs, that you could still kind of like make mixtapes and swap things around a little bit more.
Did you make mixtapes?
Oh yeah, I had a legendary Prince mixtape that I think I gave to my friend Lisa. And I don't know why I'm talking about this, but well, this is personal records that she negotiated with me. She's like, you have now the Prince CDs. You don't need this tape anymore. And it was a good Prince tape. And I was like, I agreed. And I also still have one of her father's Hawaiian shirts that are at my house.
Wait, you traded a Hawaiian shirt for a Prince mixtape?
I think that was part of it. She went home over college break one time and stole a Hawaiian shirt from her dad because I was into that.
Oh,
at the same time.
Boy, the plot thickens,
yeah,
for real.
It was, yeah. And you're like, so how did you not get married in college? There's many reasons why I didn't meet my wife till after college. I think one of the reasons being my Hawaiian shirt phase.
Yeah.
While I was in college, listening to David Bowie and my friend's dad's Hawaiian shirt. And this Hawaiian shirt, I think it
save some vagina for the rest of us.
Yeah, I know. It's like 100% polyester. Is there something worse than polyester? Because that's what it's made out of.
Yeah,
like I could hit it with a flamethrower, and this thing would look better probably afterwards. And it's
I just like that there was. I'm still confused. It sounds like, you know how baseball teams that sometimes there's a three-way deal. It feels like there was some sort of weird. Somehow you ended up with a Hawaiian shirt. Somebody ended up with some CDs, and somebody ended up with some with a mixtape. But. Yeah. This is Scott and Steve from Origin of Species.
Origin of Species explores the stories and history behind the words and phrases that we say every day.
Did you know that bring home the bacon came from boxing?
Whether it's a good thing to be the low man on the totem pole.
Blowing smoke came from actually blowing smoke up someone's ass.
Whether the term cocktail originated from the practice of inserting ginger into horses' rectums. Lots of butt stuff.
That bees don't have knees, but they have femurs.
Don't mess with Texas is a slogan from an anti-littering campaign.
And the phrase no free lunches came from, wait for it, free lunches.
Did you know that there actually was a smart aleck? And that he was a pimp?
Why are clams so happy?
And that kale is from the devil and caused the Great Depression.
Which has nothing to do with words and phrases.
But is very important to know. Did you know that rule of thumb does not come from a law allowing a husband to beat his wife?
It did not cost an arm and a leg to have extra limbs painted.
Curiosity killed the cat has nothing to do with whips and chains.
And that Ben Franklin did not coin the phrase, a penny saved is a penny earned, pun intended.
Origin of Species.
Subscribe to Origin of Species on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast provider.
Also, check us out at Speaksies.com.
Origin of Species returns Tuesday, September 8th with all new episodes. For the history and true stories behind the words and phrases that we use every day.
And also why kale is from the devil.
Listen to Origin of Species.
Why are clams so happy?
Speaksies.
So, all right, let's talk about GNR, Guns N' Roses.
So, along with my MTV peeping, big hair metal time, and I remember when these guys came out, I initially didn't like them because they frankly scared me. They were dirty, they were filthy. Axl had the first video I ever saw was Welcome to the Jungle.
Yeah.
His big hair. And it's funny to think of my initial reaction to that. And honest to goodness, yesterday I'm at the pool and Welcome to the Jungle comes on. And, it's just another song at the pool.
Yeah, you're right.
And no one's paying attention to it.
It's become part of the...
Yeah, it's
the
just,
scenery.
It's
man.
Just there. It's one of those things. But
it wasn't like that when it came out, for sure. It was like, whoa.
And what I liked about them was they were, in that kind of hair metal genre, but they were different. There was different effects. They looked different. They weren't as pretty as the other people, and you could kind of tell there was something different about those guys too.
I've thought about them a lot as like they weren't part of the grunge thing. They weren't. I mean, I guess technically, like you said, they could be considered hair. Yeah. But they're
somewhere in between.
So anyway.
You mentioned my Use Your Illusion cassettes
that
I actually reserved and picked up the day they were available.
Did you really? Wow.
What was the record store at? I'm going to put you on the spot. The Waterside had a record store.
Well, I don't know. I didn't go there that much, but I mean, they had Camelot, they had Birdland, they had...
It was one of those, and I have I have no idea why I'm going to Norfolk.
Yeah, why are we going to Waterside?
I don't know.
I thought you were going to say Lynn Haven. I was going to say, well, Camelot was in Lynn Haven.
Maybe I was trying to, have
Waterside was fun. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't.
Well, I mean, there was a mall there.
I have no idea why I went that because I went to Norfolk 6 times in my life, and apparently once was to put like a deposit on cassette tapes.
Yeah.
So that was a band I always liked, and was something that was, I would say, kind of that thread from junior high to high school. Mm-hmm. And again, a band you can't take but so personal. You liked them.
Yeah, they were kind of everybody's.
Yeah, they're everybody's kind of big band. They're Budweiser, and even something I found that was interesting today, looking up the Use Your Illusion albums, that they came out I think on September 17th and then of 1991, and then a week later Nevermind by Nirvana came
Wow.
out, which is really weird to think
That is
of.
weird.
So one of the things that is very interesting and made Chinese Democracy a personal record to me was these dummies. I always kind of held a grudge against them. Like, you guys could have been the Rolling Stones.
Yeah.
But you got greedy and took 17 years off between albums. Or
Right,
actually more
right.
than that, because they really, if you think about it, they've never put out another album.
Right.
Unless you count this one, which is really just Axl.
Right. Yeah. Like, I can't remember if we were talking on Mike or not about how it doesn't really feel like a Guns N' Roses album, and I'm sure we'll talk about that. How did you feel about the Use Your Illusion?
Oh, I liked them. They were great. I have a problem of, not a problem. When I was younger, I was the guy that always got the second album. So like a band would break big,
right.
and then I would make sure that I'd get the big album afterwards. Like, I was the person they marketed to. Like, do you remember
Right.
Living Color? Remember Cult of Personality?
Of course, yeah.
Do you remember their second album?
I do not.
Exactly. So but I was the guy that like would buy it.
I remember. I let me just get this out of my system because
Yeah.
I remember a lot of things that you listen to, which is weird because I'm the oldest. I have younger sisters. I don't have anybody else. And my dad, was not listening to anything at that point other than, I don't even know if dad wasn't listening to any music. I don't think at that point. And I remember you listening to Lenny Kravitz, and I remember you being very fired up about Lenny Kravitz, and you had that CD. I remember riding around in the back of your car, the Ford Tempo, the bomb ass Tempo, listening to Aerosmith Pump, very loud,
which came very close to making the cut for that.
and that's a great album. Aerosmith kind of kicks out. They've been up and down, but
and I need to give a shout out to our friends the Forbes, their cousin Nancy, who gave me that tape.
Really,
and again came very close to making the cut for a personal record, just off of that story of like,
oh my
I got
gosh,
this thing.
riding around in the back seat of your car because you guys it was like you and Adam were seniors or whatever, and probably Mike was around, Trebus, and if I got a chance to just ride along to wherever you guys were going, I was going to go, and Chris and I would go, and I just remember that was like the loudest I'd ever heard music. Was you turn that tape up so loud. I remember listening to Dirt from Alice in Chains.
Yeah.
I assumed you owned that because I remember listening to that in your car as well. And then I stole your Use Your Illusion,
That's all right.
whichever the red one was, because I was so confused when I finally heard the blue tape later, which I don't know how I got it because I never took that from you, and hearing that version of Don't Cry, the other version, and I was like, what the hell is this? But I love Use Your Illusions. They lost me with the spaghetti incident, and looking back now, it's like, is that where they really blew their capital? Do you remember the spaghetti incident?
Garbage, yeah. And I don't even, it doesn't count.
We don't even need to talk about it.
Yeah.
I remember being so, because, you talk about, okay, Nirvana came the year after. I think it would be easy for people looking back and go, well, that was the dagger. That killed all those bands. No. It did not kill Guns N' Roses. No. Guns N' Roses was still...
They shot themselves.
They by being assholes.
They would have been fine. They could put an album out in 1997 and it would have been fine.
Guns N' Roses let me down. Like, at least Pearl Jam put out interesting stuff, and they were like, they rose to the occasion. Nirvana killed themselves, literally.
Yeah.
None of these other bands really delivered. Pearl Jam did, but then even Smashing Pumpkins, like, put out Adore, which I love now, but was hugely disappointed in.
Right.
So anyway, did you even try to listen to the spaghetti incident, or is it just like you kind of forgot about it?
I had it. I think I bought it for $3 at one point, and then it probably got traded back in for $1. Right.
Yeah, to get Altered Beast re-altered or whatever the next
remix.
So, why Chinese Democracy?
So Guns N' Roses was I wouldn't say a big part of my life, but they were a band, again, they were kind of like my Budweiser. They were a band that I felt like I could talk to other people about. A lot of my good friends from college. It's kind of like a common language you can speak with people.
Right.
Things like that. And again, it was hard to call them personal for an album that sold, 50 million copies and everybody had, but it was fun. Good memories of like you said, driving around with Adam, doing that. I think we actually purchased I had lost my cassette tape of it, and on a Liberty college visit weekend, I think we went to a drugstore and I bought another tape of
Appetite for Destruction.
Appetite for Destruction.
Oh, we probably went down to the record exchange because
I think I bought it at a drugstore.
Oh, you got it literally at a drugstore.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
for some
that
reason,
actually makes sense that Appetite for Destruction would just be available at drugstores.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If that, odd times back in. So anyway, so they were something that I always liked and was part of my youth. And by the time this goofy sequel finally came out, it came out at a point in my life that I was older. 2008, which is crazy to think that this thing is 12 years old now.
It almost is like it exists outside of time, because in a weird way, it feels like it's only been 12 years since it came out. But then in another way, it's like, it came out forever ago, but I think that's because we heard about it for so long. It was supposed to come out in what, like 99 or 2000?
Yeah.
Or
And I think it also ripped off a bunch of late 90s music too, which gives it more of like a thing. So I had pretty much written this band off and couldn't care. And then you'd mentioned Chuck Klosterman earlier. And I made the mistake of reading his review of Chinese Democracy.
Oh, really?
And one of the things that he said, I'll just quote him.
Yep.
Chinese Democracy is pretty much the last old media album that we'll ever contemplate. Be the last album marketed as a collection of songs, last album to be absorbed as a static manifestation of who the band supposedly is. The last album that will matter more as a physical object than as an internet sound file. So that for me, and it hit me.
It makes it perfect for this podcast.
It's the last record. So in 2008, this comes out. I'm about to be a dad. We know we're having a daughter. My career's in flux. I'm leaving one industry, going to another that will end up being a bridge to my current profession.
Yeah.
Hopefully my last one. And it just seemed very fitting reading that, like realizing this is like my last. This is my last rock album. This is a way to kind of close the book, close a chapter in my life. And you couldn't even download it, so I had to go to Best Buy. So it was probably literally the last album that I bought.
Wow.
Went in there, brought it home, listened to it, and then if I had a chance to meet Chuck Klosterman at that time, I would have probably kicked him right in the nuts and asked for him to give me $16 back because a stupid article convinced me to buy this.
That had to be bull crap, because why would Chuck, because he doesn't like stuff. There must have been some tie-in. I mean, it had to do with Dr. Pepper.
Dr. Pepper was paying him off for that. But that's one of the things that made it fun to revisit as we were talking about this, is to go back and now to listen to it. There was no at this point expectation of it, because it was built to fail. There's no way it could be good after 17 years and I think $13 million to make.
Well, and that's one thing I was always confused about. I remember as the years went on, and it became a joke. It became a punchline. It's like, it'll be Chinese. Jimmy Hoffa being found was no longer a joke. It was when Chinese Democracy comes out. Years passed, and I always wondered, why is he even sticking with? I mean, granted, it's a pretty cool title, Chinese Democracy, but like at a certain point, wouldn't you just blow it all up and then say, I'm going to do something else? And I think maybe part of the reason he didn't, now that I think of it, is because a lot of the vocals and stuff I think were recorded and then he got super fat and couldn't record them anymore.
Right.
Maybe. I mean, not to be mean.
But I had read that too, that one of the things that's interesting about this is that he rotated the band over and over, and you hear it in the songs.
Yes.
It sounds like that they had 14 versions of a song, and they decided, let's release all of them at once.
Yeah.
But I had read somewhere that most of the vocals had been recorded in the late 90s. And then as music styles change, I mean, think about, so the last new thing they had recorded was 1991.
Right.
17 years. 17 years is a long time in anything, in any industry to bring out something. But, grunge happened, alternative happened, post-punk happened, whatever the Spice Girls were happened. Yeah. Basically, hip-hop, jump, rock music, I'd say, is like the youth music. And then this thing comes out that this guy, I mean, think about how he had to have changed over 17 years.
But he wanted to put out an artistic statement or something. Right. And what's he going to do? I mean, you can't put out, and I did read that he had his band that ended up being, I guess, the core band initially for this album, re-record Appetite for Destruction. And I guess people said it was a waste of time. And I heard that and I was like, actually, that's kind of not a bad idea if you're trying to get a band to sound like Guns N' Roses that's not Guns N' Roses. But the problem is, and would you agree? I mean, Guns N' Roses, the appeal to one of the big appeals to me of them back in then, they were an exciting band. Like they were those guys. Like you really couldn't swap them out. I mean, even like I guess Izzy was gone after Use Your Illusion, and everything has sucked since then. But you don't necessarily think of him. But I think all of the guys in that band, they made they were an exciting thing. What's going to happen? There's nothing exciting about an album that gestates for 17 years, and I'll tell you when my faith really died was when in Guns N' Roses was when I guess it might have been the 2002 or 2003 Video Music Awards.
Right.
And I'm sorry because I hate to body shame, but like Fat Axl came out and they did like probably Welcome to the Jungle.
Right.
And he sounded real bad. Do you happen to remember that?
I was reading up on this and it was a repressed memory. That I had totally forgotten that.
It was hard to watch.
It was.
It
and
sucked.
I had forgotten that 1999 they had leaked a song, or they released a song on the End of Days soundtrack.
Which one was that?
It's
Do you
called
remember?
Oh My God.
Okay.
And it's awful. And
That didn't make the album, did it? Or did that make?
No.
Okay.
But that
Chinese
was
Democracy.
because remember, Chinese Democracy was always just about to come out.
Oh, and they thought it was so close. They're like, here's
so-
from the new Guns N' Roses.
Right. And it's I've never heard it. I actually remember downloading that off Napster. So I finally heard it today in actual.
Oh, how is it? I've never.
Oh, it's not good.
I mean, trust me, I did my research. And by the way, I was going to make some bad jokes about how bad Chinese Democracy is. I asked Siri to play it and she just said no. But no, there's some decent stuff on there.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that.
But I do have a question though before. Let's try to put this in perspective for my younger listeners. If you try to think like who's the biggest act right now, I don't know why the first thing, this probably shows how old I am because my first thought was who's the real dirty guy with the face tattoos?
Oh, Tech Nine.
No. He has tattoos that say "Never Sleep." Oh, Post Malone.
Okay.
He might not even be big anymore. I don't know, but like he for a minute there, that's actually a bad. Whoever's the biggest artist right now.
I was thinking like it would probably be like Jay-Z and Beyonce. Like I was trying to think of like who would be a press conference that people would go, "Oh, that's going to happen."
And maybe, but like they are both so incredibly. They've been much more. They've been much more prolific, but we can use that. But like, I'm thinking of like an artist that put out an album, put out 2 albums, and like was music royalty. And you know what? There's nobody left. There's nobody left because
that was part of the
to
appeal
that
of
article.
that,
They were the last big, whatever arena sort of rock band. But just imagine, Jay-Z, one of these guys puts out an album, and then the next album's supposed to come next year, and you can't wait. And that goes on for, is it 17 years? Yeah. And then it finally comes out. First of all, you have to buy it at Best Buy. I did not buy it.
Yeah.
You probably told me don't buy it.
Probably told you also to kick Chuck Klosterman in the balls if you saw him.
And so I'm guessing that because of that reaction, you pretty much used it as a coaster, got rid of it. It probably, did you like break it? Like it hostile?
No, I forgot about it. So what prompted me to do this was I was listening to Appetite for Destruction on Spotify, and like there was a radio station that was invented. Spotify will do that. It'll make a radio station for you, and it had a Chinese Democracy song. I'm like, you know what? I haven't listened to this in 12 years, and I put it on, and that I remembered getting it. I remember
it brought back that moment,
the experience. I remember my anger at Chuck Klosterman. It all kind of came back to me,
right? But it kind of crystallized for you, like, oh my gosh, 2008. All these things were changing. I think I wrote about this on my website, that how the Radiohead Kid A thing for me kind of has that. If I listen to that now, it's like, oh my gosh, I got my first big boy job. I was sort of somehow, this album reminds me of that. So this was that for you. So let's talk about the album a little bit. First of all, quick heat check. We're up to 80. Oh, we're at 82 even.
We've evened out. That's not
so
too
it's
bad.
it's I mean it's moving up. Before we talk about it though, I like to do some research a little bit, and really I had forgotten that Chinese Democracy existed mostly. I kind of, after I saw Fat Axl on that, which I kind of feel bad for him, kind of don't, because he's kind of an ass.
Well, that's the thing about him. He's not someone you feel sympathy for. He's not Brian Wilson. He's a guy that was a jerk.
Right, absolutely.
And decided to,
Well, Brian Wilson at least was funny about it and clever. Some of the stories about him. So the first thing I did, I put the album on.
Mm-hmm.
and immediately was kind of like, didn't have a great reaction to it. And I went to the Wikipedia page, and you know how Wikipedia has those it's like at the bottom, it's like all the links. The most I've ever seen is 347 references on Wikipedia. And just for comparison's sake, I think I looked up China and it has like 220.
Right.
Democracy has something like 200. So Chinese democracy has more references.
Right. And I think there was more than 300 musicians that played on it at some point. And it shows.
Well, in if I'm jumping ahead, but I mean, you listen to this album and there are times where you're listening to the guitar work and you're like, this is unbelievable. Mm-hmm.
Right.
I think I wrote it down. Well, I started writing down the solo on There Was a Time. Holy shit. And then I was like, the solo. And then after like doing that 3 times, I was like, you know what? What's the point? The solos are pretty amazing.
Right.
I can't figure out who did them though. Is it Buckethead? Is it David May from Queen? Like who? I don't know who did these.
Right.
There's all these things. So
when you look back too, what's interesting is you'll see 3 different lead guitarists listed on a song. So that's what I think they did too, is they had all these different versions, and it sounds like they mixed all 13 of it together and just put it out, which is good and bad. So it ends up having, what I've found is there's a few songs I like, a few songs that are pretty good.
Well, can we talk about that?
Yeah,
well, go ahead.
And there's parts of songs. That's the thing. This is one of the few albums that I've ever listened to and go, this song's not good, but listen to this 40-second part here where this happens.
I totally agree. I mean, Shackler's Revenge, I actually really hate, but the chorus is catchy as hell.
May I jump? That was one of my big notes.
I'm so sorry if that was what you're going to say, but it's...
So you listen to that song, second song on the album. Yep. So just to walk you through, the first song is called Chinese Democracy.
Yeah.
Very underwhelming. It sounds like the first song on an album that's taken 17 years to write. There's nothing bad about it. It's just there to kind of get your
do you
feet
think
wet.
they did that because that literally my note says Chinese Democracy song. The first guitar chords are uninspired. It kind of reminds me of, you know what it actually reminds me of is the opening chords of The Darkness, I believe in a thing, because it's like, and I'm like, that came out in 2003 and sounds cool and fun. This is just like,
right.
So, yeah, it's underwhelming. And then you're like, well, maybe they're just, they don't want to, I don't know why, but then you get into Shackler's Revenge and then you're like, holy crap, what is this?
Yeah.
It's got those weird screechy 9 Inch Nails-y type of.
So Shackler's Revenge starts, and it sounds like what I would call 9 Inch corn. Like he's taken a lot of like new metal, and there's a lot of 9 Inch Nails all over this thing, including different players from 9 Inch Nails. Robin Fink, I'm not sure how you say his last name, is all over one of the.
Of course he is.
One of the guitar players, and Shackler's Revenge just starts with this just corny, new metal, industrial wannabe sort of thing. And it goes for a while, and it's not a good song. But then there's a part right before the chorus that this tribal chant starts, and it's this massive, big riff that makes you just want to get up and start whomping people.
Yeah, I started doing that. Yeah.
And then this guitar solo that is nuts comes out of nowhere. It is a classic, not a classic, it's something that's actually different. It doesn't sound like something that even Slash would do. It's a guy, Bumblefoot, Ron Thiel, I think his name is.
Okay.
Make sure I should have had that right.
Peter Thiel's brother.
It could be. He could be the guy that tipped him off. Ron Thal, pardon me.
Okay.
It goes by Bumblefoot, and it's incredible. And
so wait, this album had a Bumblefoot and a Buckethead.
Yeah.
Wow.
And a Tobias and a Robin Fink, who was the guy in, if you remember, March of the Pigs by 9 Inch Nails, the video.
Oh, that video's so good.
He's the tall guy with dreadlocks.
Yeah. Oh, that guy's in it. What a cast of characters. Yeah. But it's still kind of, well, what do you think about the song? I mean, you're describing it. I mean, it's got its moments. It could have been a pretty damn good song.
Yeah, it's got parts. Yeah. And all these things. And you also listen to it, and again, that there was probably multiple versions of the song, and you feel like that they all were put out at one time. Like
yeah,
it's just
now that's where that makes sense. I think that's right. Yeah. All right. So how you want to do this? You want to go track by track, keep rolling through? I'm going to fade out at some point because at some point, no, just on the tracks because they all start to kind of sound this.
Yeah,
but,
they do.
Any other highlights for you or other songs you want to talk
Well,
about?
what is there any songs that jumped out at you?
Well, I mean, Shackler's Revenge. You did a great job breaking that one down. I will say my maybe favorite song on the album is the third song, Better. It starts off and it's got this vibe, and as soon as I heard it again, it sounded like this band called Mew that came out in the early 2000s. It's got like this high pitched sort of background kind of thing, and I'm like, whoa, that's interesting. And then it's just kind of a straight ahead kind of good, like you could see it being a Guns N' Roses song.
Yeah.
So I liked it.
It's a good straight up rock song. Two different guitar solos I noticed in that, and like sounds like two different people.
Right. And it probably was.
And I think that they took, all right, you had a good guitar solo, you have one. So you get one here, and then 3 minutes later, you'll get another. Hey, guy, you get to have your guitar solo in it.
Right. So, I mean, what are some other ones that you liked? Were there any other ones that you liked? This is your personal record, not mine.
So one song that I did actually remember liking when I heard it the first time was a song called "Catcher in the Rye."
Yeah.
It's a catchy kind of pop rock sort of song. That, as with all these songs, you listen to it and wonder if there's what this could have been if it was mixed differently.
Absolutely.
And that's one that you can actually find a demo of it on YouTube. And there's supposedly a version with Brian May from Queen.
See, I heard a rumor or saw something, but then didn't know if that was true.
And it's not released anywhere. So which is, there's I think part of the mystique that remains with this, looking back, is that. And that's something that's aged well. It's an interesting song. It's actually about Mark David Chapman.
Oh, yeah.
The
guy that killed
John Lennon. And this was like Axl's song to John Lennon, I guess.
Dude, what is up with Axl Rose and serial killers? Because you got the Marilyn Manson thing. You remember how he wore the Marilyn Manson shirt back? And then he, I think, released some of his music at the end of... I didn't know this. I read this before we at the end of the spaghetti incident.
You mean
or Charles Manson.
Charles,
good Lord, sorry.
That's right. I forgot he stuck that on the end of spaghetti incident.
I was thinking about Marilyn Manson because the Shackler's Revenge kind of reminds me of Marilyn Manson.
Well, I think that was at that time in the 90s. That was still funny to people.
Yeah.
And again, going back to Nine Inch Nails connection of, they recorded Downward Spiral in the house where Sharon Tate was murdered.
Right. Forgot about that. Yeah. So you're right. There was like a kitschiness thing that was like funny, and he even said that. But anyway, whatever. I like that one. The one that was really weird, and you talk about maybe other than Shackler's The Revenge, the one that sounds most like it was 6 songs recorded at once and then hit play was If the World. Mm-hmm. It's got like a Spanish guitar, then it's almost like a hip hop beat. Like, when you said in the span of time they were making this album and you started listing off all the things, I'm like, they really did try to cram, because then it's like these like synthesizers and you're like, what's going on? But then you hear, and his vocals actually sound amazing in this song. Yeah. And there's something about hearing Axl Rose sound like Axl Rose that, imagine there was no other Guns N' Roses album and you just heard this album. You might be like, well, this is bizarre, but like that guy's voice. Yeah. At times it's weird. There's a couple times where he doesn't actually hit his...
There's one song called Scraped that has like a gospel choir with Axl making his Axl sounds, which I think it's a bit of an acquired taste. Like sometimes I do like a good Axl howl. Yeah. Not with, I imagine there's some beautiful choir of black ladies singing, and he's like shows up in a kilt. And
that's not what I trying to. Well, he looks so terrible. Yeah. I was trying to think of how to describe him in some of the recent pictures. He kind of looks like if Mark McGuire let himself really go. You know what I mean? Like he's just this hulking poor guy. We all get older, and it's kind of sad. But when you think about Axl Rose, you want to remember the. Yeah, I hate to put it this way, but the heroin chic looking guy raising hell on the stage. There's I think it was Street of Dreams, starts with a piano, and then it's got like this soulful baritone Axl.
All the love in the world
not care for it. It was a little too. It's like, you know, I was like, this is probably the part that he didn't record until recently. You could kind of tell, and then it gets into, and it's almost like it had to have been multiple takes.
Oh yeah.
Well, every album is multiple takes, but I'm talking about like one was 1999 and one was like 2000.
That was one. It was called The Blues at some point, and that's like even if you find like old references to this. Like, that song has been around for forever.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that's why. Yeah.
It was almost like he's trying too hard in that one. Like, I think I'm gonna do this sort of power ballady song.
It didn't work at all for me. But no, I can see why you chose this. So now, and then I'll be honest, like from there, I've re-listened to it a couple times, but kind of stopped. Basically, what I would do is like if a song stuck out to me, I'd look and see, okay, what song is this? And that's Catcher in the Rye was that song.
Well, it's an hour and 11 minutes, and that's a lot to do with anything. Yeah. So I had to go. I realized that I had to like listen to this in phases. That I would start in the middle because I would just burn out.
That's what after
a while.
I started shuffling it because I was like, if I start at the beginning, I'm going to tap out by the fourth or fifth song, and that helped a little bit. So.
There was one song I really liked.
Please, let's
that
go.
I would like to shout out on. So there was one that surprised me that I remembered it from the first time I heard it, but I listened to it again, and it's called Sorry.
Yeah.
And it's in that genre of songs that Axl really likes to do, which is the Everyone's After Me song.
Yes.
Which, and I hate that. All rock stars do that. You get that level of success.
But some of his best stuff on Use Your Illusion are those types of tracks.
Yeah.
Well, maybe, at least in my opinion, but yeah.
Yeah. But the older you get to, like, there's some on Use Your Illusion that I think if you listen to now, like, he's not, like, no one's scared to fight him, especially when he looks like an old lesbian. Right. You know, no one is going, that lesbian in cornrows.
Right. Nobody cares. And Dr. Pepper's not after you.
Yeah.
Which, do you want to really quickly explain the Dr. Pepper thing, or did you read up on that?
I did, but you could go for it.
Well, no, I mean, basically there was a tie-in. I think it says everything you need to know about Chinese democracy, that there was a kerfuffle between Axl Rose and the Dr. Pepper people. I can't even say that, but apparently there was supposed to be some tie-in that if you pre-ordered the album, you would get a free Dr. Pepper. And of course the website crashed and people didn't get their Dr. Peppers and were angry. And Axl Rose eventually had to disassociate himself from the whole thing and make this huge statement against Dr. Pepper. It was just, I mean, I don't really care that much about the details, but that's pretty telling that, you know, at the time that you were living in, it was like was it an exclusive Best Buy? I think it may have been. Maybe they got it a day early or something. But you had a tie-in with Best Buy and Dr. Pepper in 2008 on your album. I don't know that everybody's after you and that you need to have a song, but Sorry, but you did like the song Sorry, though. Yeah,
and it's kind of I put it in the genre of things I shouldn't like, but I do.
Yeah.
Because it is very much the... I'm tired of you messing with me, but it sounds different. It doesn't sound like everything else. I think actually Chuck Klosterman referenced this to, compared it to Pink Floyd, but it feels good. And it reminds me of, we've talked before about our good friends, the Forbes, and my good friend Chris Forbes, and I'll give him total credit for this. You know, they used to argue, and one of the debate argument openings would be, first of all, nobody likes you, which I think should be used in public by politicians, because you can't come up from when you're like, what do you think of my tax policy? First of all, nobody likes you. Yeah. And this song is pretty much a first of all, nobody likes you song. It's very bitter.
With this. It would have been
the lyrics are actually clever, and again, it's something that he does it. I think the chorus is I'm sorry for you. I'm not sorry for me.
I'm sorry for you.
Yeah.
Nobody likes you, which I thought is a good way to do it, and it sounds different. But
that was one of the ones I remember looking on my phone to see what it was and being like, yeah, this is pretty good. Do you think that could Guns N' Roses make a comeback? Like, could they actually make a new album now that would be good, or is it done, or have people died?
That's a good question. So, kind of the way to button this up was I saw, they've reformed. They did the Not in This Lifetime tour.
I had a friend that went to that. And it's Slash is there.
Yeah.
Well, and Adler's there. Oh, you went to that too?
I was your friend that went to it.
Oh, okay. Well, I know somebody else at work that went. I totally forgot that you went. Okay, well, tell me. I'm sorry.
So, I will give a shout out to my good friend Brian Miner, who had someone stiff him on being able to show up on a ticket, and was like, I'll give you a ticket if you drive.
Where did you go see him? Was it at Charlotte?
RFK.
Oh, it was RFK. Why
Yeah.
am I blanking on this? Okay.
Because it was a weird... Well, I'll tell you, one of the reasons is you would think that I wouldn't shut up about doing
Well,
this.
like when you saw Prince, you won't shut up
well,
about
that was as I shouldn't, because that was a great concert.
Right.
But this was something that was, again, kind of like somebody, I don't know, old girlfriend or somebody you'd just kind of written off. And it was a little bit of drudgery. And it was called, was it Not in This Lifetime Tour? And they
Yeah.
finally got smart and sat down and said, here's a bunch of giant bags of money. Do you guys want these or not?
Yeah.
And they said yes.
Well, who was there from the original lineup? I know Axl and Slash were there.
Yeah, Axl / Duff.
Yeah.
Izzy won't tour. He ceased doing that. He kicked drugs and alcohol years ago and just doesn't tour, which is good for him.
Yep.
Steven Adler's been out of the band just because just drug issues. And
Right, I knew that.
They never restored
So
him.
it was Duff, Axl, and
To-
Slash.
To me, but you put Axl and Slash up there.
Yeah.
I'd love to see Izzy out there. That would have been awesome. And I don't know if you remember the tape drawer I actually had.
You had, let me say it. It was Izzy. What was the solo's band's name? Not Snake, but that was Slash. Crap. Who was it?
Izzy Stradlin and the Juju Hounds.
Dang it.
So
That's
it
why I
wasn't
don't
Guns N'
remember
yeah.
it. Didn't have quite the same
So
ring. I
think that
do remember
does
you
put me
had
on a
that.
Guns N' Roses fan level. They might be Budweiser, but I have like the Bud Light, like Pride can.
You have
I've
Bud
done
Ice
something.
or
yeah.
like Bud Light Platinum or
Is that a real thing?
but there was a Platinum. Oh hell yeah! You never had Platinum?
No.
Oh yeah, it's a
need
thing,
to.
man.
Well,
it may not. I don't know.
They're
if
going to sponsor
you know what?
Jay-Z and
I
Beyonce's
don't-
big tour.
Yeah,
when they
I don't
come
think they make it anymore. They tried to, because when the craft beer thing happened, they were like, they tried to market it like as if it was a craft beer and it had like some ridiculously high alcohol, but it was still, I had it, of course, because it's beer, and it tasted like Budweiser with more alcohol, which was kind of gross. Well, there goes that sponsor.
That'd be a good tagline for that.
Yeah.
So I finally did get a chance to see him, and it was free tickets, so I shouldn't complain about all. And I was there, and the thing that was interesting was to see those guys older, because in your mind they're kind of like, I have them locked in what they look like in 1994 or 1991, whatever. Axl's a little thicker, he's a little older, as we all are. Slash, still has the hat and glasses, but arms are flabbier. He's getting older.
Yeah.
What was really weird was Alice in Chains opened up, which I don't know if they have a new singer who's awesome.
Guess what? Their last album, is fantastic.
I believe it.
It was one of my favorite albums that came. Yeah.
And the weird thing for me was seeing the drummer from Alice in Chains, who in my mind is locked in as how he looked in the video for Wood
so true.
in 1991.
Yes.
And he's older now.
Right.
He looks the same except older, but it was weird. So it was something to watch, and I remember being just somehow a little bit jaded during the whole thing, but you get to see Sweet Child of Mine happens live.
That's cool.
And you get to see Slash play that. And
yeah. Well, there you go.
that kind of washes away a lot of
Yeah.
a lot of bad memories about things.
Well, so couple things.
Mm-hmm.
You sit there and go, well, these bands, you don't see them for a while, they get old, and like us, everybody. But then you look at Phil Collin from Def Leppard.
Yeah. Ripped.
I got to see Def Leppard was it last summer? Oh, and our friend Anthony Forbes was there. And
So I was with you then. Or did you see him? Oh, you saw him last summer?
You saw them previously
With Anthony.
I saw
Right.
them also.
Oh, that's right. They were a Journey.
With Journey.
Filipino Journey.
And I just remember going like, so did Def Leppard get it? Like, who's that guitarist? They must have like got some guy out of college, and this guy's
62.
yeah, and he's shredded. But okay, well then let me ask you this: and are you good on time? We're an hour in. Okay, so better live show. I'm gonna actually ask you a series of binary questions because I want to get your opinion. I already know what the top one's going to be, but better live show. That you experienced, was it that Guns N' Roses one, or when you got to see the Rolling Stones?
Rolling Stones was a better show.
Okay.
There's they at that advanced age, which was still, gosh, this was probably 15 years ago I saw them. There's a reason why those guys get to do that. Still, they're much better.
Yeah. Okay. We're gonna keep working down.
Go for it.
Better show. Guns N' Roses, or when we saw STP at Innsbruck After Hours.
That was
better overall experience versus better show.
I think that was very similar in that kind of going through the motions, except it wasn't as sad as watching STP.
Yeah.
Go.
Yeah, that was sad, and that was very shortly before I mean, it was within a year of
Yeah,
him
it was
dying,
pretty
yeah.
close.
Okay, all right. So then we're gonna go. So right now the ranking is. Wait a minute. Which one was better? STP or
Guns N' Roses.
Guns N' Roses. Okay, STP. We're gonna put it at the bottom. Guns N' Roses. I got another one for you. Guns N' Roses or when we saw Gin Blossoms. And was it Gin Blossoms and Collective Soul? I just remember Gin Blossoms was kind of awesome.
No, it was another. It wasn't Collective Soul, but it was someone. It was more Gin Blossomy. It wasn't better than Ezra.
Was it live? It was live. It was live. They weren't good.
They were embarrassing.
Yeah.
Gin Blossoms won me
Gin
over
Blossoms
because
was
they
awesome.
have a lot of songs. And you know what I just realized? That
They have a lot of songs.
we have not discussed,
Tell me.
which I'm kicking myself in the ass that we didn't do this.
Tell me.
My birthday,
Mm-hmm.
my Guns N' Roses fandom.
Mm-hmm.
You remember I had a important birthday, and there was a band that played in my living room.
Oh my gosh. You did remember, and we're still rolling, so that's
We've
good.
ignored the
Blaxl Rose
Blaxl
in the room.
room for a birthday that was a critical milestone that I will not give away. Scott and my lovely wife helped get a Guns N' Roses cover band here in Richmond, Virginia by the name of Rocket Queen, who occasionally reform. I don't think they are anymore. I'm Facebook friends with Blaxl, but that's about the limit of my contact with him. And they are...
They're fantastic.
I'd watch them over Guns N' Roses any day, especially with Fake Duff if he was still there.
Fake Duff was scary, but I need to set the record straight. I'm so glad we're talking about this because one of our first episodes of Origin of Species, I want to make this very clear to you, Steve, and to listeners and to especially your wife. I had really nothing to do with that. That was all your wife.
Mm-hmm.
I listened back to that episode and was like, I pretty much made it sound like it was me with a little help of your wife. No, she set that whole thing up. The only thing I did was help distract you by we went and had a beer, which wasn't that hard to do.
Yeah.
Come back to the house. They played your house.
They played the living
That
room.
was a lot of fun.
That was tremendous. And Fake. So we always called him, the Blaxl Rose is a full-figured black man.
Mm-hmm.
It goes by Blaxl Rose. Awesome. It sounds better than Axl. He sounds better than
amazing.
Axl. So all the other guys, most of the guys in the band had wigs on and kind of like wink, wink. We're playing in a Guns N' Roses cover band, except for the bass player, Fake Duff.
Yeah.
Who looked like he had spent some time on Hollywood Boulevard in 1987 and was living the life. He was one of the most terrifying and greatest people I've ever met in my entire life. He hit on every woman in the entire house.
And he had a line too. What was his go-to line?
Did I go to high school with you?
That's right.
No, I didn't. Okay. Move on to
First
the
of all,
next
you
one.
didn't. I don't think you went to high school. The guy, he was there for the booze. They must not have been paying. I remember he drank a lot of the booze.
He did. Everyone else was good. The rest of the band cleaned up. Like you wouldn't have known there was a rock band in my living room. Fake Duff took the Jack Daniels, drank all of it, and then vomited in the side yard. But to his credit, he didn't barf in the front yard. He went to the side yard to vomit.
Pure class.
Yeah.
But if nothing else, and we got please you yourself or ask your lovely wife, see if you can find any pictures from that night.
I have video still.
Do you still have the video?
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to get a couple stills. We'll get something.
Well, there is one of my favorite pictures I know we have that I need to find with Fake Duff.
Oh, yeah.
Taking a picture with me, and he decided to drape his very long hair
gross.
on me, over
God.
me, so I looked like I had long hair. And
It's
if someone
so gross,
took a
dude.
picture, he whispered in my ear repeatedly, "This isn't gay. This isn't gay. This isn't gay."
That's terrifying. I forgot about that picture, but it's so gross. I can't. All the hepatitis jokes you make, you're the most one at risk.
I'm probably invincible to hepatitis.
That's probably true. He draped his hair, and he looks so bad in that picture. So we need that picture. Anything else you can find? And our buddy Eric sat in on drums and actually kind of crushed it.
He did. I need to. You just reach out to me.
I have a VHS of it somewhere. I just don't.
Yeah,
I don't have anything to play
you gave
VHS
me.
on. Yeah, that's right. I think
it's digitized somewhere.
I gave it to you. I made a couple, but we'll find it at some point. But that was a tremendous night, and the magic of that night was we couldn't reproduce it because let's just put it this way: we saw them a couple more times, and they're great no matter what. But it was never.
It's not the same.
It wasn't the same as your house being packed and a pitch perfect Blaxl Rose with full band playing. I mean, that was one of the most fun nights ever in my life, and that had to be one of your best birthdays.
Oh yeah. Nothing tops that. And every year, one of these years, I'm going to put them out on the internet, the pictures of us.
What we need, we need to do. Wait, with your what?
My
with
terrible goatee.
Oh,
I look like, what's that toy, like when you're a kid you have, and there's the magnet, and you kind of drag the hair over their
Mr.
face.
something, Mr. Hair,
Whatever
Mr.
it was. That's
Don't
what my
Google
goatee
it.
looked like.
Yeah. My favorite picture of you, which I told you, which I don't worry, I'll never put it anywhere, but I have it somewhere, is of us at the chili cook-off, which God bless the chili cook-off. I missed it. My thing about the chili cook-off was you go there to see bands you forgot about, or see big bands not at their peak, like Firehouse and Blue Oyster Cult, to get diarrhea. Because if you don't get diarrhea at the chili cook-off, you're doing something wrong. And to drink a bunch of beer and have fun. But the one year we rode the bull, and I got some great shirtless pictures of Steve at probably his physical peak.
If you mean physical peak by
my
heaviest weight ever.
Probably your heaviest.
It was a peak in a certain way.
But here's the thing. I remember that picture, and I just remember so much joy in your face. You were happy. You were we were at the chili cook-off. We'd already seen Blaxl and Rocket Queen at that point, and you're on the
we met him afterwards, and I gave Deluxe. Yeah? I think it was actually I have that picture handy somewhere that it was me and Fake Duff.
Yeah, we'll get that. I'm going to also ask you if you would. One thing I like to do is ask my guests if they want to make a playlist. So maybe you can make like a GNR playlist of your go-to, and it doesn't have to have any Chinese democracy unless you want to.
I could, and I can also have all the other songs that I learned from Spin Magazine made me look cool in 1992, and put that out there too, so I can make sure I get some street cred.
Please, I'll put them both out.
That.
So I believe we've covered everything. Is there anything else you'd like to say now that it's a balmy? It's 83 even. Wow. It keeps not that bad. Every time I look, it's on the even. Oh no, it's 83.6.
Well, I think this has helped me too. The next time we have a Halloween party at your house, I have a new way I can contribute. So if you see me pull up with a ladder and some Filipino friends, you know what's going to happen.
It's about to pop off.
Yeah.
Hey, Steve, thanks for doing this. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
I've been reading what they say in the news.
All right, that was my conversation with my good friend Steve Glissman. I had a blast in that conversation, and I hope you enjoyed listening to it. It was fun to get some color from Steve on his musical taste, and to talk about Guns N' Roses a little bit. So I just want to say thanks to everyone who's been listening. If you enjoyed that conversation, please go to speaksies.com. And actually, you don't even need to do that. Just find wherever you listen to podcasts, whether it's like Apple, Spotify, Stitcher. And if you just search Speaksies, that's the word speak, then CIES, you'll find Origin of Species. That's the podcast that Steve and I do. Once again, thank you so much for listening. My name is Scott McGinnis, and this is Personal Records.
Speaksies.